With all this talk of a virus, I can't say I'm surprised when an announcement was made that we were now quarantined. It came from a large black truck using a loudspeaker at the end of our block. Soon after, men and women dressed in strange, thick clothing that would have been at home in the wardrobe of a prepper or a serial killer marched down the road. They had masks on with large glass eye holes. The eye holes were the only thing that made them look human. They went house by house, an announcement playing from the same truck as the masked soldiers knocked on doors. When they knocked on mine, I was hesitant to open it. I lived by myself and I knew that I wasn't sick, but for some reason, the way they knocked frightened me. It was 3 loud thumps that I could have heard from anywhere in the house. It actually made me jump a bit, even though I had watched them come down the walk. I opened the door slowly and I peered out into the darkening evening. The truck had parked right outside on the street and I could see the masked soldiers spread out among the other houses where they were either pulling people out onto the lawn or breaking down the door. The truck itself had a strange logo on it, like a warped American flag. As soon as the door was open enough for a hand to fit through, a gloved hand did just that. It gripped the wood of the door and shoved it back into me, knocking me back a few steps. "Let us in, now, sir." The voice caught me off guard and I stuttered for a moment. "Let us in right this minute, or we will shoot." Fine, come in." The door shoved me back again and the masked people entered. The boots were loud and crisp on my wooden floor, as 2 of the soldiers flooded into the room and set about searching it, rifles against their shoulders. And they shouted for anyone else in the house to come out. "I live alone," I shouted once I had regained my footing. I lost it again when a smaller masked soldier came in and shoved me against the wall. "Stay." The force behind the voice made me close my mouth, but it was more feminine than the ones who were shouting throughout my house. I looked down at the soldier, trying to knock down my anger. "Is there anyone else in the house?" I just told. Her forearm pressed up under my chin and caused my voice to catch. "Yes or no, sir?" I could see through the glass eye holes that wide hazel eyes searched over me, and her brows were down heavy over them. They didn't fit the hardness in her voice. "No." "Are you sick?" "No." I pulled at her arm and she released me. I coughed a few times and she actually took another step back. "I'm really not." "It doesn't mean you aren't a carrier," she said and turned to the hall as the 2 other soldiers returned. "Clear?" "Clear. Moving on to the next one," one of them said before he turned and grabbed the shoulder of the man behind him. "Stay and make sure things go smoothly." "Yes, sir," the other said and took up position beside the door as the other left. He stared me down, which really felt unnecessary when he already had a gun. "Don't do anything stupid." "What's going on?" I asked him, but he kept still and silent. The woman was working on something at her belt and came up with a needle and a vial. "We're taking blood," she said. "For what?" "That's none of your concern. For the next few weeks, the entire neighborhood is quarantined." She handed the needle and vial to the other soldier and then pushed up my sleeve. She ran her thumb over the crook of my arm and then reached over for the needle. "If you try to leave the area, you'll be shot. You try to fight us, you'll be shot." "Are you serious? That's..." I hissed through my teeth as the needle broke the skin, and then she attached the vial. "That's bullshit. How are we going to eat? I have to work." "You will be provided meals for the time you are here." She popped off the vial and held it up to the fading sunlight. She seemed to find what she was looking for and pocketed before taking out another. "As for work, haven't you been watching the news? You'll be paid for however long you're quarantined." She pocked the next vial and then removed the needle and pulled down my sleeve. "Done?" the soldier beside her asked. She gave a curt nod. "Done. He looks like a good candidate, but I'll have the test done by midnight." "Candidate?" I asked, and she turned back to me. "Outside contact is not allowed. The telephone and cable lines have already been cut. I need your cell phone." "What for?" She held out a gloved hand. "You can give it, or we can take it forcefully." The soldier beside her relaxed his stance and took a step. I cursed and pulled my phone out of my pocket and slammed the phone into her hand. "There. I don't have any other phones here. You can look around if you want. You probably already did, I bet." "Thank you," she said, and she handed the phone to the soldier. "On the plus side, electric and water will be running normally. Your rations will be dropped off in the next half hour." She patted my shoulder as the soldier opened the door. "Think of this as a chance to catch up with some good books." "Are you going to tell my family?" I asked, and the woman turned back. "Do they live in the development?" "No." "Then they will be informed through our contact group. Don't worry about them." She went out the door and the soldier followed after. I sneered at their backs and I slammed the door. I rubbed at my arm as I went over to the window and I looked out. They were efficient, if anything. The people that were once in the yards were gone. Their doors already closed up and the soldiers moved on to the next houses on the street where the same scene played out. I pulled up a chair to the window and I watched. Night had fallen by the time the rations had showed up. They were brought by a young man who had removed his mask and gloves. He grinned at me as I opened the door. His brown hair stuck up at odd angles and there was a sheen of sweat to his skin, even though it had to almost be freezing out. He dropped a large box on my doorstep and grinned. "Rations for the next 2 days. Why aren't you wearing your mask?" His grin widened. "There's no reason to on such a nice night." "What about the virus?" I asked as I bent and opened the box. There were packages of meat and eggs, stuff that seemed strange to be rations. There were a few jugs of water too. A bottle of iron supplements laid at the bottom, which I pulled out and I rolled in my hand. "What's this for?" "Just to be on the safe side." He dug into a pocket and came out with a folded piece of paper. "I need you to sign this." I took the paper and I looked it over. It was just a confirmation that I had received my box of rations. I took the offered pen and I signed my name at the bottom under another signature. "Awesome, thank you. I'll see you tomorrow." He took off down the sidewalk, but there was no truck or car waiting for him. Instead, he turned right and went down the sidewalk to where the road dipped. I stayed on my stoop and I watched him. Beyond the dip, there was a halo of white light, like you would see from the outside of a baseball stadium. I closed the box and I sat inside the door before I took a few steps onto my lawn and towards the lights. I moved slowly, the frozen grass sounding like thunder to my ears with each step. The entire area down the hill was encompassed in bright white light. Tents had been set up and a fence had been placed around the road and into the yards of neighboring houses. There was a line of people at one end of the compound, surrounded by soldiers. None of the soldiers were wearing their masks. The people were being funneled into one of the tents, but no one came out. And that was when I looked around the area and noticed that there was only one other house on my street with their lights on. All the rest were dark windows without even a porch light on. Not a great night for a stroll. I stepped away from the tree and held my hands up at the sound of the voice. I turned slowly to find the woman from before leaning against a mailbox a few feet behind me. She didn't have a weapon, but I had a feeling her soldier friend was nearby. "Your delivery boy said it was nice out. Wanted to check." I bet." She pushed off the mailbox and tucked a few strands of her black hair behind her ear. She wore no mask, just like the others. You should get back inside before you catch the virus. You guys don't seem worried. Oh, we're worried. Very worried, which is why we're doing this. She came over to stand beside me and looked down at the tents. We're doing what we need to do to survive. What are you doing? Culling the herd, she said simply, and there was a faint smile folding into the cheeks of her thin face. You're lucky. What do you mean by that? She waved a hand. I'm just being dumb. Don't listen to me. I had a bit too much to drink tonight. Anyway, I got your blood test done. So am I free to go? Nope, she said, popping the last letters with a chuckle. She may have really been drunk, which concerned me. But your blood is clean. The cleanest I've seen in a long while. It surprised me. Yup, it really did. That's a good thing, right? Very, very good. You're as clean as can be. She leaned towards me. There was a click on in the darkness and she sighed. Of course they're watching. I turned and looked around, but didn't see anything, which made my fear rise and choke my throat. She grabbed my arm and rubbed it with her other hand. I'm not gonna do anything, alright. We're just having a nice chat. She looked up to me and her features seemed to sober. They get all touchy at night. You should get back inside for now and get a good night's sleep. What about them? I pointed to the line of people. She patted my arm and stepped away and out into the road, her boots clacking on the asphalt. Oh, them? They're not your concern anymore. And go on before they get tired of waiting and force you back inside. Who are you talking about? Me, a gruff voice said, and I turned to find a soldier behind me. He still wore a make and his gun was trained on me. Back inside, now. I said nothing and tried my best to seem casual as I hurried back along the sidewalk and into my front door. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I spent the time watching the darkness outside my window and wondered what was really going on. They didn't seem like they were from the government, especially when they stopped wearing their masks. I thought back to the news reports that were playing all the time about the virus. Those types of masks weren't even supposed to really help. A part of me really wished I had listened to my brother and got myself a gun, but I wasn't sure it would be much help now. The next morning, I stepped out to the living room with a cup of coffee and looked out the window again. I was surprised to see a group of soldiers were standing on my front lawn, their masks firmly back in place. When one of them noticed me, they made a motion to the others and one broke off. They went up to my walk and knocked on my door in the same way they had the day before. I put my coffee cup down on the sill and went over while trying to hide my annoyance. I opened the door and was met with the same woman from the night before. She wore her mask as well. Good morning. Worried about the virus now. Our protocols change depending on the situation. Really, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Well, it doesn't have to. She reached in one of the pouches of her belt and came up with a new needle. Here for more blood. You said that I was clear last night. She nodded and came into the house. She headed for the living room and I followed her. You are clear, but we need to keep testing your blood to make sure you haven't contracted the virus since the last time. What does it matter? I'm in quarantine from now on. The virus will either kill me or it'll be sorted out. We have our yeah, whatever. It sounds like bullshit to me. I shoved up my sleeve and I held my arm out. Here, take what you need. She paused for a moment and I heard her breathing catch. And then she was back to normal and slowly inserted the needle with the same skill as the day before. She filled 3 vials and then pulled out the needle. Make sure you eat the rations we're giving you. I am. And the supplements. I shrugged. I forgot about that. Her demeanor changed. There is no forgetting. Take everything we give you. Our future existence may depend on it. Alright, sorry, I said. She pocketed the 3 vials and placed a hand on my shoulder before she let it slip away. Just do as we say and everything will work out, okay? Stay inside. She left and closed the door behind her. The soldiers on the yard all followed her, save for 2 who took up positions on either side of the door. They weren't part of the government, but I didn't know what they were a part of. I did as I was told and woke the next morning to a sound I'd only heard in video games or movies. Gunshots. I rushed from my room and out to the living room windows. I was shocked at what I saw. A person in a yellow suit, the kind you saw in outbreak movies, laid on the ground. Blood pooled around them on the sidewalk. Another of them was struggling in the yard across the street, with 2 soldiers working on subduing them. I went to the door and I opened it. What the hell is going on? Did you kill that guy? I shouted as I came down the sidewalk. It was stupid, but I was at my wit's end. Fear fueled my courage in this, and I stalked over in my underwear and stared down the soldier that stood over the dead guy in the hazard suit. Go back inside. No, screw that, I said. You're going to tell me what's going on right now. The soldier trained his gun on me and my voice caught. Suddenly, I realized what I was doing and I took a step back. Whoa, take it down a notch. I looked over to see another masked person running across the street. I recognized them as the woman that took my blood. Don't you even think of shooting him, you brain-dead bat. He must go back inside. I'll take him back, okay? Clean up this mess before it gets the others riled up. Cleaned up the normal way, you hear? Yes, ma'am. The soldier said and dropped his rifle down. The woman grabbed me by the arm and pulled me back into the house where she shoved me. What the hell was that? She asked. That's what the hell I want to know, I said, and I pointed out to the open door. They shot that guy. What are they doing to the other one? Containment. Oh, come on, drop the shit. You aren't with the government, are you? It doesn't actually matter. You're the ones with the gosh dang guns, but Christ, you killed that guy. She shrugged. Your quarantine will be over tomorrow. That wasn't at all the response that I had expected, and I stared at her for a moment. What? We're moving on tomorrow, and when we do, your quarantine will be over. You'll be returned to some kind of normalcy then. A new normalcy, but it will be better than this. You said weeks when you first got here. She nodded and crossed her arms as she faced the windows. I did, but things change. We're moving on tomorrow evening. And all those people that I saw. She looked back. They've been taken care of. I need to go. Stay inside until I come to get you tomorrow night, okay? What else am I going to do? I could tell she was smiling even if I couldn't see it. Good point. Tomorrow night then. Sure, I said. She left and I watched her met with the soldier that almost shot me as the 2 others placed a sheet over the body of the dead hazard suit man. I didn't know what to expect, but I wasn't in a position to change my outcome now. The next day went without incident, save for a black cloud of smoke that came from down the street. Someone was having a massive fire, but I didn't pay it much mind. I just waited for the knock on my door with a great amount of hope. It came just after the sun went down and I rushed across my living room to open the door. The woman was there, but she wore simple clothes, long-sleeved shirt and jeans. She smiled at me and stepped in without being invited. Good evening, she said. She had her hands behind her back as she surveyed the room like she had never been in it before. How was your day? Fine. So, this is the end, right? She turned to face me, rocking on her heels. She gave a slight nod but kept her gaze on a bookshelf. I guess so. And did you catch up on any of your reading? A bit. The gunshots made it hard to concentrate. She smirked. I bet. So, I've been lying to you a bit. Surprise, I said in a mock gasp. I know. Oh, I'm not talking about being with the government. We're getting better, but we're still really bad at that facade. She tucked a few strands behind her ear and grinned at me. I blinked a couple of times as I didn't see what I expected. I'm talking about some other things. About your quarantine being over. Is this a joke? I asked. You know Halloween is like 7 months away. What's with the teeth? I noticed it when she smiled. Her canines were far too large to be normal, and they came to far sharper points. Her tongue darted out and ran across one of them. Guess I should have kept my lips closed, she said and shrugged. It's not a costume. It's what you think I am. We all are. I cocked my head. What do you mean? We're what you would call a vampire, I guess. We drink blood. So you're insane. I looked around for some kind of weapon, but there wasn't one in reach. She noticed my panic and the grin widened. Some of us are. We've been hit harder by this virus than anyone else. It doesn't kill us, of course, but it messes with our ability to eat. She went over to the coffee table and picked up the knife from the dinner and flipped it around so the handle was out. Would you feel better with this in hand? I grabbed the knife and I held it out in front of me, but her humored look only grew. All those people. Like I said, calling the herd. Most were infected or could be infected. Leaving them alive puts us all at risk. You killed them? Yep. You're a better actor than I would have thought. Or did you really not put that together that night? She looked down to my dinner. You're at least eating like we asked. Your blood should be nice and tasty now. You've been drinking my blood. She placed a hand to her lips and looked sheepish. I wasn't supposed to. I was only going to test it, but when the results came back and with the vial right there, I couldn't really resist. It's bad enough that I have to resist every time I see you. You can't expect me to turn down a meal when presented like that, can you? You're serious. You think you're a freaking vampire. We are, and you'll be joining us. She walked around me slowly like a predator. We have to preserve our means for food now. Your blood is clean. It's killed the virus before it even had a chance to do anything. You're immune without being infected. I'm not joining you for anything. Oh, you are. And so gather up some clothes, bring your laptop along, and whatever else you want. You'll be treated well, trust me. You just have to give a few files a week and then you're free to do as you please. Within reason, of course. I brandished the knife at her. Stay away from me. Why the hell should I believe anything you say? She shrugged. It doesn't matter if you do. You're coming along. Something hit me in the back of the head, and my world went black. When I woke, I was in the back of a vehicle with the vampire woman tending to a cut on the back of my head. She smiled at me and picked up a bag and placed it on the cot. Some things I thought you would like to keep. I'm writing this as we travel. I just woke from having a large amount of my blood removed by the vampire woman. They're feeding me and letting me have my laptop as I recover. I'm not supposed to have internet, but I found an open Wi-Fi and I'm using that to warn all of you. If you see a black truck with a warped flag on it, fight back. If you don't, you'll become a piece of livestock for them to drain.